My child has got 32 kids, including herself, in her class. We've had play dates successfully at our home with 6 of them in the last 2 years. I can't figure out if it's because of the fact that I'm blind, a little bit mental, have fibro, or because of sexuality and gender, or because I'm a solo parent. But content notes before I get too into this. There's brief mentions of mental health, fleeting mentions of suicide, section 28, what else did I put? And just, general content notes for if you're feeling a bit sensitive and delicate, then it might not be the speech for you, given it made the person who proofread it for me cry. And they assured me it was happy tears, but sad tears, but fucking hell, I love your tears that you could make me give. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm reading this off a Kindle, which I haven't done before with speech, so bear with me, it's also still in first draft form because I didn't have time to go back and edit any of it. So it's pretty raw and a bit intense. I'm Lee, a mid-30-year-old solo parent of one, who's 5.5. Well, the half's very important. Also, I'm constantly reminded. And then I remind myself, hang on a minute, I was 36 at the beginning of this week, and she's actually 5 3/4. So, yeah. I'm a human who has the ability to love and have open and honest romantic relationships containing communication with more than one other human at a time. Although some of my most recent partners could be questioned if they're human or not. Pansexual, I'm a natural term breastfeeder, gender fluid, blind, enjoy cooking and baking. I'm a little bit on the kinky side, a football fan. Or if you ask my parents, they'd say I'm not afraid to get on a soapbox about issues and causes which matter to me. Give them my passion, give them the words, bring them alive, and leave people empowered and energized, eager to know more. But if only my parents would actually take heed of their own words. But it's only a few of those reasons and things that I've been asked to speak to you about this evening. I'm constantly facing a world where I'm invisible, be it my gender identity and or my sexuality. Although in a way it does make me chuckle to be invisible, because currently that's how the rest of you look this evening, because I can't actually see you that well, because my vision's dipped significantly over the summer and functioning at a far less level than what it was prior. I'm read as female by the world, mainly due to 2 large prominent breasts, which society uses as a clue as to how they view me. View and judge without even seeking consent, violating my identity without even asking me to self-define first. But then, once I do out myself as gender fluid, people still assume, but you must be a mother because you breastfeed. So explain to me one question, one thing that's always got me confused. My child, the thing in the rainbow dress, has off her own back, always from day one I've been nummy, with an N. Not once has my child called me mummy, mum, mother, oi, mum, or any other parental word starting with an M. Instead has created a gender-neutral term to represent who and what I am to her. My sexuality is erased from the sighted eye. Currently the human, hi Chris, over there filming, hello, who I'm dating and in a romantic relationship with is male. So if you see us out and about, you just read us no doubt as a straight couple with a child and go, oh. Then you hear the stuff coming out of the child's voice and mouth and wonder what exactly is that child being taught and messages given. It's so hard to be a pan person, to be in a mixed gender relationship, to know have my own identity, to maintain, which is why spaces like Leeds Bi Group and BiCon are so important. To not only give a safe space, but one where my family is able to feel at home, to be seen for who and what we are. My daughter says BiCon is awesome, because there's other small humans just like me, and I'm able to be myself. I may add she spent 4 days this summer deciding that she was going to be identifying as a unicat. For those unaware, she was a cross between or a hybrid of a cat and a unicorn, complete with her own set of pronouns for those 4 days. Not one person at BiCon had issue with respecting her identity. Just when she told the grandparents when we got home, she got told to stop being stupid and go back to being a child. I frowned and told her to express herself however she wanted. Back in 1995, there was Oasis in the charts, although I personally preferred the Manics. I was 13, Section 28 was still in place, enriched, deep and rooted within the education system, one which didn't meet the needs of me, as a person who I knew that was attracted to people, be they people, as 13-year-old me was told, were men or women, or merely me was attracted to them as people. Their genitals, or what they wanted as genitals, had no impact on my attraction. I stumbled across the word bisexual somewhere. It even then, as a 13-year-old me, made me feel a little dirty, that I thought I was sordid, undesirable, that I had a reputation to cheat, supposedly, according to the rest of the world. I was simply confused, but yet, despite the negativity, it kind of resonated, but didn't fully explain, but gave validity to something. I missed my post-GCSE prom. I was banned from the head of year from going to it because no same-sex couples were allowed. So I spent the evening yelling my head off at Ellen Road, far more therapeutic and had a much better time than many of my peers later reported back as having. I can recall a PSE lesson at school. We were told, write a question, fold it, put it in this hat. Nobody will know who's asked it, but everyone will get an answer. So why did a mid-teen me write, this sex ed thing is meaningless to me, as I have a girlfriend, and how do I have sex with her? Everyone else had their questions answered. Well, everyone except for me and the clearly gay guy who was trying his hardest to pass off as straight, because he was asking a very similar question. Instead, we found that we were frog marched in front of the head teacher and asked to explain why we thought our questions were valid. I simply replied with something along the lines of, because by ignoring my question, you're ignoring me, and who and what I am. You'd not ignore me if I wore glasses, so I ignore what me is just because I'm attracted to humans who are of more than one gender. I also had the guilt of conditioning, because I'm Jewish. It was drummed into me. All I had to do was to be accepted by myself and the world. But everything I accepted to myself was intrinsically wrong from what I'd been told. For within Judaism, it was intrinsically beaten into me that I'd be of sound mental mind, marry a doctor or a lawyer, get a nice house somewhere in North Leeds, and reproduce. I've done one of those things. This was the norm I'd been conditioned to live within, not the norm that I was carving a path for myself. For at the age of 16, had me sent home from a post-GCSE trip to Israel because I kissed a girl. I was caught and reported back to the trip organisers, who promptly decided that sending me to a psychiatrist to explain my actions would be worth the while. I sat there and said, I've done nothing wrong. It's you in the wrong for thinking I'm wrong. I got sent home. I didn't mind. I got to see the first Leeds game of the season. Starting college, that autumn, I was unafraid, unashamed. I was confident that I'm me. Take me for who I am. I won't regret a minute or a moment as I live with mental distress, have frequent relationships with people across the gender spectrum, and regular relationships with more than one at a time. I just didn't know of the term polyamory back then, so it was seen as, because I happen to have bipolar disorder, as being promiscuous, and many viewed it as cheating. The less than receptive response from family members to who I was dating caused my mental health to dwindle further. Though, through luck, I somehow stumbled across various youth groups, specifically for LGBT youth. We'd meet once a week in Leeds, Bradford, Wakefield, anywhere that would put up with us and put the world to rights. It was our safe space to be us. We didn't have to hide who we were and who we were attracted to. We could be out to ourselves, to each other, celebrate our successes, and cry with each other when relationships broke down. It was safe in that space. We were understood, we were empathised, we were us and free. Out to 25, Blaggy, Gaelic, Football, and latterly Speak Out became a positive at a time of deep darkness. Yorkshire Mesmac, I've probably thanked you more than 1 million times over the years, as well as Leeds Equality Action Project, for all that you did and the funding you gave without condition. You believed in us, you gave us space, you gave us free space, you gave us a voice when nobody else would. I'd not have had that voice or had the confidence to be me or had the guts and ability to say who and what I was if it wasn't for those groups. Sadly, a lot of the people in those groups are no longer with us, and that makes me incredibly sad on a daily basis. But with Speak Out, we had the ability to go into places. We had the ability to go into schools when Section 28 was still around and say it's okay to be LGB anti. We had consultation with the government paper, Every Child Matters. Just a shame so little of what we said to Margaret Hodge was actually paid attention to. We were able to go into workplaces and say to people employing other human beings, if you have a colleague who comes to you and says this about themselves, it's okay. Do not sack them because we have their back even if you don't. And legally there's nothing to protect them. We essentially sent out the message to the world that you matter, your identity is valid and real. This was the early 2000s. Even now, being mindful of who and what I am, it saddens me so many peers and actual active partners of mine found no other way to cope with their own personal anguish but to fly high and be in heaven. To look down, and I like to hope keep a watchful eye over my child to make sure that my child has all that is needed and everyone else on earth knows right from wrong, and earth evolves to be a safer place for others than it was for them, so others don't feel they've no alternative than to prematurely leave this world. Despite having my refuge in these groups, I had deep darkness in my day-to-day life. The only light to often see was tinged red and panicked faces on staff at hospitals as years of bullying, abuse took their toll on me for being different to my peers, and the only way I could personally seek release was through self-injury. It was a healthy way for me to cope. It enabled me to stay alive when in reality I didn't really want to. By no means am I proud of how I coped and coped, but it enabled me to live then in a world when I didn't want to be here. I wore my pain on my torso, my limbs. It was there, stitched up, stapled for the world to see. I didn't hide it because I couldn't hide it from myself. I could run, but I couldn't hide from myself. It was rare for anyone except for those who ran the LGBT projects to give a damn about the reasons why. And those reasons mainly included bi/panphobia, being told to make a choice when intrinsically I simply couldn't decide which relationships were based with who or what the person's gender was. I was a people person, and it was then as a person that got and still does get my attraction. For years I'd say I'm simply gender blind. Kind of ironic when you consider I was registered as legally blind a decade ago. So now I literally am gender blind, which for me is what pansexuality is. I don't see gender, I just see people how they want me to see them, regardless of what is or isn't, or what they want or don't want between their legs. People are people to me. Who am I to pass judgment and cast them aside just because others do, and they don't fit into that nice little neat box? It feels wrong and inhumane to me. So I guess to summarise who and what I am, I'm many things, but dependent on who you are and for what reason you're asking depends on what you see or how you view me. I stand here before you this evening as many things, including being a pansexual proud parent who's also polyamorous, all too aware of the privilege of an education and what it's given me, and aware all too acutely of how the lack of education has let so many down. When someone chooses to share with you their sexuality and or gender identity, please treat it as a treasure, a prized possession. Do not ever use it as a way to have power over that person or control. Be proud someone has trusted you enough with their deepest fears, but also hopes. They've trusted you with so the least you can do is back to them the respect they deserve in return. It's 2018. The world we live in is by far an equal one, but one which is slowly changing. Change is happening, just not as fast as we'd like. If a 5.5/3-quarter-year-old can grow and be aware that she has a nummy who happens to be attracted to people regardless of gender, then come on world, get with the child on this. See the world how she views it. See people as people. Stop thinking it's your right to please people and